So, today I want to talk about the purpose of HTML. HTML is one of those web development topic which is very initial, but not everybody delves too deep into it. Even if they did, they'd go into the zone of what HTML is and then start talking about or teaching about how the HTML works. This is going to be a very brief, short, in a very short manner. This video will only focus about what, not just about the what HTML is used for, but also why HTML is there in the first place, right? So basically speaking, the purpose of HTML is what I am looking into in this particular live video. So let's start. One of the, you can say ki the purpose of HTML is basically can be divided into two broad categories. These are, let's see, these are structure. We have to go a little bit, which is not actually taught in any YouTube tutorial anywhere, which is accessibility. You know what, I don't like this font, so what I'll do is I'll try to be this way. Okay, so the first purpose of HTML is basically structure. The second purpose of HTML is accessibility, and these two are broadly the categories in which HTML operates, or the role of HTML starts and it basically ends. Anything else that you do from HTML or you can do from HTML is something that you should not be doing it from the HTML, including, say, using some sort of like coloring of any text, or say you want to underline something, say you want to make certain things italic. These are certain things which most probably should be done using now CSS rather than HTML. So in these two topics, accessibility is a very broad topic. We are going to come to this in theory at least, but in some other videos. But in this video, I like to talk about the structure. Structure too can be defined into two parts. One you can say is what we call layouts. Second is what we call typography. And these two are the only things that HTML is concerned about: layouts and typography. Apart in as at least as far as structure is concerned, there's also one more thing. This is also the purpose of HTML, and that is load things optimally. We can make it like so. We can stretch it like this. This is basically what you can say is what helps us optimize the web page. And this is not, you can say this is not entirely what HTML is for. It is something that you write these techniques or you write these so-called properties in the HTML element itself, so that the web browser can actually utilize those keywords, those properties, to actually make the web load certain types of media faster. Like for example, they are based on the layout elements or typographic elements. Out of the box, web browsers will actually behave or load things differently. So that's why I'm not trying to put this in a manner of like it's a concrete thing. It's kind of like, yes, one of the purpose of HTML is this, but it is included inside this structure in my opinion. And the once you actually follow the proper structures of using the semantic elements, using the proper elemental tags, like for example source, properly define the source in the images, properly define all the properties of the images like preloading techniques and all of that, browser will take care of it. And all of those definition is part and parcel of this structure. So what comes under the layout? Well, under the layout we have something called certain elements like div, image, videos, semantic elements like body. Then we have main, section, aside. By the way, these are all in small, so I should just mention it like small only, I guess. Stop this for now. Video, not videos. Body, main, section, aside. Then we have something called like HR, VR, and on. Codes or some, I think code, there's also code, there is, maybe I'm wrong there, but I'm not remembering much, but this is also there. There's something called block code, and then there are other things as well, so I will just put it like etc. In this part, typography, we have something called h1 or heading elements. Then we have paragraph or p, h1, h2, h3, and so on, p tag. Then we have, basically these two are the only things you can say for typography, but I think you can also call it like block quote, you can call strong, you can call strong is for emphasis. There's also something called I think, yeah, strong is for like it will bold the text, but it is kind of like a semantic element rather than the previous bold thing which was b, and so on. And these are the only two things which you can say is forms a part and parcel of the HTML. There are a bunch of elements that goes in these two categories, but they pretty much cover everything that you can actually use in order to structure your entire web page. And if you use these two properly, you automatically achieve, for the most part, accessibility. Now, accessibility is a very broad topic, but in very short terms, you can say these are for people who are differently abled. Right? But just because it is the case, if we make our site accessible, it also people with no disabilities. For example, if I implement keyboard shortcuts for people who have some sort of like motor problem, then that will also help people who don't have motor problem, right? And these accessibility disability criterias can be actually categorized into four fields. You can say there's a vision, there's a motor, there's a auditory, and then there is something called cognitive. If you want, I can actually make a video on this as well, because I have researched on this as well, at least in theory. And in my current job, I'm actually looking into one of the problems that came up in this accessibility domain for the client that I am working in with my team in the company that I work in. But this is basically the part and parcel of the accessibility. And one of the things that accessibility is that it is a long process which has few standards, WCAG, but the rest is something that needs to be worked with the people who are disabled and your customer to properly optimize your site for their specific needs as much as possible. And this is the part of the accessibility thing. This is something that nobody will actually teach you in most part in any of the YouTube tutorials, because it's a very hectic process, and for most part as a beginner or as an intermediate web developer you don't even need it. Most probably is something that you do it on the basis of the request from the client, or on the basis of, say, if some senior is already doing it for you, if you are a person who is just trying to get into this. But if you know this, is very beneficial, because you are basically kind of like have a sympathy for the people who are not able to just use the available or what we consider the normal tools. Okay. And one more thing that comes into this is something called array attributes, which is what WCAG actually covers, right? Here we also will find contrast ratio in colors. Then we can have proper heading sizes. We can have line height, pretty much everything that you are, if basically in a very short term, if you are able to do these things in a very proper manner, most of this will be covered, right? And that's about it. That's the purpose of HTML. Again, to revise, there's a structure part of HTML, then there's a accessibility part of HTML. Accessibility part of HTML is something that most people or most tutorials on YouTube will not be actually telling you anything about, because it's a very hectic process or hectic thing to teach. It's a very subjective thing to teach. There's not any, how to put it, there's no such objectiveness in this. Each and every project will have certain standards that they can actually follow, which is defined by WCAG teams or WCAG standards, but the rest is quite subjective, and it is up to you or the client to decide the degree of accessibility that you want to actually put. This part is something that most people actually teach, because this is quite a standard. This is standardized in the HTML itself, and this is most probably all you will need in the beginning or till intermediate. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say in this particular video. If you like it, please go ahead and subscribe.